Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
Happy Monday, all you minties. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And here we go with the latest omnibus from the old Knucklehead line. That's right, we are looking at the new printing of Wolverine by Jason Aaron Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. So, let's talk about this book together. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on April 15th or 16th, depending on where you get your books. What we're looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the one that is drawn by Adam Kubert. And on the left-hand side is my original printing, and this is the cover by David Finch that they are still using for the standard edition cover. This cover will be available everywhere, while that cover over there on the right-hand side is only available at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, dyingbreedcollectors.com, readcomics.com, comicsbugle.com, forbiddenplanet.com, talesofwonder.com, organicpricebooks.com, instocktrades.com, DCBS, and of course your local comic came out. If I'm not mistaken, it only had one print run. It looks like this has been shifted over a little bit to be centered better. This time around, it has a parental advisory. Over here, it's explicit content, the Marvel logo, and the Marvel logo there, and $100, and this one is $99.99. Now, of course, I am going to remove it, or remove the dust jacket, but before I do, since this doesn't really have like a Volume 8, Volume 9, where does this belong in the reading order of Wolverine? Well, it goes, believe it or not, right after the Mark Millar Omnibus, so after the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and including 6 that is coming out later this year. And the Sabretooth stories, there are some stories there that kind of take place in between issues here, because we are looking at a creator-centric book. But this goes before it goes to hell, and of course, Wolverine and the X-Men. And it is interesting because Wolverine and the X-Men was the first Jason Aaron Omnibus to be, or Wolverine Jason Aaron Omnibus to be released, and then they released this and then goes to hell. So they almost did it out of order. So thank goodness for a guy that does reading orders on YouTube. Let's go ahead and look at the flaps here. The claws come out as the feral X-Men fights his deadliest battles yet. And bio on the creators, and lots of creators here. And over here, underneath the dust jacket, yeah, the same kind of blurb about the book, and then the bios over here, including that Deathlock picture by Ron Garney. All right, so remember when I said this is one of the older ones? I think 2011 is when this was printed, but unlike some of the other ones that look like the Marvel Masterworks with the faux leather, this actually has a blue finish to it. Wolverine Omnibus and the Wolverine logo there, and then the back. And you have Jason Aaron, Volume 1. The new printing over here shows an image from Manifest Destiny. I think it's issue number 2, if I'm not mistaken. And man, that is morbid. But that kind of gives you an idea as to how gruesome and dark the stories in here will be. So I'm going to go ahead and open this Omni up and talk about the stories and look at this artwork here from several amazing, talented artists. Look at the extras, the build, and then of course do a quick comparison to the original printing. The best there is at what he does. All right, let's see what he does this time around. Here we have an image from Ron Garney, Wolverine title there, and Wolverine by Jason Aaron, and of course divided by the different stories that are being told through here, but also giving credit to all of the artists like Howard Chaykin kicking it off, and then Ron Garney, Steven Segovia, Adam Kubert, Jog, Esad Ribic, Janik Paquette, and C.P. Smith, just to name a few of those artists there. And then Udon Studios actually drawing his very first Wolverine comic, his very first Marvel comic. So this is a wonderful introduction. I love introductions like this where writers and artists or comic book creators just kind of get down and talk about, what they were doing. Kind of gives you that sense of hope. He was talking about, working these dead-end jobs and trying to break it into comics and daydreaming about working in the comic industry. And this was written in 2011. So the Wolverine series that he was writing, I think he won a contest is what he ends up talking about. But I want to say that first book was 2002 when it was printed, 2003, I can't recall. But this is such a wonderful introduction because he talks about these dead-end jobs, daydreaming about being a comic book writer, and then trying out, competing for this Marvel contest that they had to let a writer pick a favorite character, write a one-page story about the character, and that story is actually printed here. Of course, it turned out to be a lot more pages than that, but I thought that was a really sweet and wonderful story. Okay, one thing you probably noticed is the way that this book is laid out. You're missing issues, and you're wondering, what the heck, what's happening here? Remember when I said, the Sabretooth hardcover, some of the stories take place in between issues here? That's what's happening. This is everything that's written by Jason Aaron. So you are going to be You're going to be reading and feeling like you're missing out on some things. So let me explain first what's collected in here. So collected in here is Wolverine 56, 62 through 65, Wolverine Manifest Destiny 1 through 4, Wolverine Weapon X 1 through 16, Dark Reign the List Wolverine material from Wolverine 73 to 74, Dark X-Men The Beginning number 3, and Wolverine 175. The book has 688 pages and retails for $100. By the way, spoilers for some of the things that happened previously and then some of the things here, because it is the beauty and also the curse of comics when reading a solo series and you just want to focus on Wolverine, for example, because there are things happening in the pages of X-Men. There are crossovers that affect your characters here. So I do have to talk about some of the things that happened, for example, like in the Messiah Complex and Second Coming, stories like that. We do kick it off with a really simple story. I really like this story. This is the character of Wendell. Wendell is a guy that is going through marital problems. His wife left him, and he works at this facility where his job is just to torture and shoot people in the pit. This time around, the person in the pit is Wolverine, who gives him a psychological kind of evaluation that Wendell has never had, talking about where his problems started, his failing marriage, and what's going to happen, once he gets out. You don't know who he works for, but I'll go ahead, again, minor spoilers, but I'll tell you, the people that hired him had something to do with that Romulus story that first started in the pages of this comic, Wolverine, with Jeff Loeb and Simone Bianchi, talking about this character that kind of has been guiding Wolverine around in his life and manipulating his life and controlling aspects of his life, especially some of his villains like Wild Child or Sabretooth. Wild Child, of course, coming from the pages of Alpha Flight, but then later on he was an X-Factor. Okay, then we skip some pages, right? We go all the way to issue number 62. Because things happen afterward and you have the Sabretooth story. But this is the Get Mystique story. Now, this is the one when I was like, okay, I can actually see this guy writing Wolverine. He's pretty solid. So this is in the aftermath of Messiah Complex when you had the character of Raven, Mystique. She was part of the team, and then she ends up betraying the X-Men to sell them out to the Mr. Sinister. I'm not going to say exactly how she sold them out, but Cyclops tells Wolverine to go after her. So it is this journey across the world to go and try to find Mystique. And he's like, look, I want to handle this solo. I don't want X-Force to get involved. So he goes after her. And there's a flashback taking place when they were back in the early 30s and how long they've known each other, because they've had a history and they've hinted at a history before. This goes deeper into the history of both of them. Ron Garney supplying the artwork for this one. By the way, the legendary Howard Chaykin does the first issue in here. But this has some killer and stellar artwork. Ron Garney, really one of the greatest artists, and not a lot of praise for his work in comics like Daredevil or Wolverine or even Ghost Rider. But man, he was one of my favorites. There's some super sexy scenes through here, and perhaps that's why it has the explicit content or mature content here, especially involving this fight between a naked Raven and Wolverine. I mean, it doesn't go into gratuitous stuff, but the Manifest Destiny story. Now, during this time, after the events of everything that happened in the Messiah Complex, all the X-Men comics, there was like an X-Men, this, by the way, has been collected before in the the Manifest Destiny hardcover, along with the miniseries, the X-Men Manifest Destiny and Nightcrawler Manifest Destiny one-shot. It's kind of getting back to the basics after this thing that happened in House of M. Wolverine remembers everything from his past. Again, I have to talk about these things in order for you to understand like where some of the stories are going. And one of the things that happens, or at least he remembers, he ends up going to Chinatown when he finds his dagger. Because after he gets his memories back, he's like, oh, that's right. I haven't been back there for like 50 years. And 50 years ago, he defeated the Black Dragon. And the Black Dragon was kind of the leader of this section of Chinatown, and now he returns to face the new Black Dragon along with a bunch of her lieutenants, like Soul Striker, and oh my gosh, what's the other guy's name? It's not Fire... Is it? I think it is Fire Fist, yeah. So this is a little mini-series. Again, Jason Aaron, they're not missing anything written by him, and it will establish who the new Black Dragon is, and it ends on one of those cliffhangers that, could they bring it back? Yeah, sure. And then we go back to Wolverine. So these issues are really unique. This is kind of like a day in the life of Wolverine, where you focus on the idea that Wolverine is a solo character. Wolverine teams up with different parts of the Marvel Universe. Wolverine is part of the Avengers. Wolverine is part of the X-Men. Wolverine is part of X-Force. How does he have the time to do all of this? And this kind of gives you a behind the scenes. You can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Monday, he's fighting the Serpent Society with the New Avengers. Over here, he's fighting a bunch of zombies with Black Talon leading them. The Friends of Humanity and Mystique. I like this line. I thought I told you to kill that woman. I thought I did. Right? Cyber over here when he's rolling solo, teaming up with Spider-Man. And Spider-Man plays a big role in this, kind of making him realize perhaps he's doing all of this on purpose. And I think it's just a really awesome and unique story. Now, Weapon X. So the series, Jason Aaron ends up getting his own ongoing series. We have Wolverine Origins, and then we have Wolverine Weapon X. Weapon X, the ongoing series, did have ties to the actual Weapon X original comic that was in the Marvel Comics Presents, and a little bit of the Weapon X The Return. In this, it starts off with him saving this woman named Melita. And Melita will play a big part in all of this. It's Melina Gardner. And she plays a big part in Wolverine's life. But what happens here is he's going about his everyday life, and he ends up rescuing Melita from a group of thieves and ends up running into Maverick, who lets him know about this Blackguard Corporation. And the Blackguard Corporation seems to have a fascination with the Weapon X project, and they have lots of money. So they are recreating I guess they're recreating the formula, and I'll just leave it at that, and creating their own Weapon X soldiers. So you have scenes like this where Wolverine has to fight these guys that perhaps have the same kind of abilities and powers that he does. And Melita will play a big part in all of this, including this battle that's about to take place against these Weapon X soldiers. And that's all I will say about that, but it's really good to see somebody like Maverick back, especially since he was a big part of that storyline. Dark X-Men, the beginning right here, number 3, focusing on Wolverine and Norman just wanting to know why he doesn't have control of the original Wolverine. And Dark Reign, the list. Why don't I own this? This actually... Shoot. Okay. The status quo of the Dark Avengers is told here, and I don't want to spoil what happens in Dark Avengers. That's something else. I don't mind talking a little bit about X-Men, but Dark Avengers, read it for yourself. But it does explain the status quo of, like, Marvel Boy. But the character of Phantom X makes a return there, and I'm a big fan of his character. This is the storyline called Insane in the Brain, where Wolverine has no idea how he got to this insane asylum. It's called the Dunwich Sanatorium. And over here, you'll get to meet the character, or I guess reintroduce the character of Dr. Rot, who will play a big part in all. This is the one that's drawn by Yannick Paquette. And again, this young lady, Lita, playing a part in all of this story. I think at this time, a lot of people had speculation as to what happened or what was going on because of the things that were happening in Batman R.I.P. by Grant Morrison. They were trying to figure it out. But anyway, it makes for a really good story. This is, I want to say this is the cover with all the ladies. Yes, right here. I love that cover. For obvious reasons, right? I mean, it's because of my favorite character. Just completely unimpressed by anybody. So this goes and shows you, like, the past lives of, or the past loves of Wolverine, and anybody that has ever taken an interest in him and how they ended up. And he feels really guilty about all that. I love that Marvel does a really good job about recapping what's going on with the rest of the Marvel Universe. And remember when I said that it's both the beauty and the curse of comics like this, is that even if you were reading just Wolverine in single issue, you would have to know what's going on in Captain America, what's going on with Steve Rogers, and who this new Deathlock is. I love that comics like this make you want to read other things, because Messiah Complex will make you want to read why exactly Raven betrayed the X-Men. What was she doing in the X-Men to begin with? So you got to go and read, like, Peter Milligan's run and then Messiah Complex. That, to me, at least, maybe I'm alone here, when I was getting single issues, is why I enjoyed them. And both Marvel and DC try to put as much information in their books as possible. But not all the time, right? Sometimes they just throw issues together, and it's up to you to figure it out. But now we live in the age of the internet, where you got dudes explaining what storylines are, or Wikipedia, or I think you could just do a search on Google. Give me a quick explanation of how Raven... Back in my day, we just had to, like, try to get back issues, or at least talk to somebody at the comic book store that knew what the hell they were talking about. So this is the third storyline that kind of wraps up the Wolverine Weapon X series before we have the ongoing Wolverine series, that is the Wolverine Goes to Hell Omnibus. But this is Wolverine teaming up with the new Captain America and Steve Rogers and the new Avengers, fight against an army of Deathlocks that have come from the future, and they're working under orders from Roxxon. And you can find out exactly why Roxxon is programming them, but they're coming to the past to take down individuals who might one day become the leaders for this resistance movement against this corporation in the future. Does that plot sound familiar? Absolutely. Does it ever get old? Hell no, at least not for me. I love that stuff. There is an issue in here that ties heavily into the Second Coming, and I don't want to spoil what happens in that issue, so I'll just go to this right here. It's the one that's drawn by Udon Studios, A Good Man. A little bit based on the A Good Man is Hard to Find storyline by Flannery O'Connor, which is one of my favorite short story writers. But this is the story that won him the contest, that is really hard to read sometimes because it's so true to life. And it makes sense why Marvel, they chose him to win the contest. I don't know about anybody else that entered, but it is a really solid story and a very great understanding of who Wolverine is. And in the back, we do have variant covers, which there weren't a lot of back then in the day. Nowadays, for like the first issue, we'd have like 20 covers. And that one may look familiar to you. And then the back here. And your end sheet. So let's talk about the binding here. 688 pages. It is sewn binding. Not much of an eye. It's just pretty dark, so I don't know if you can tell. There we go. Not much of an eye. So let's see the way that it lays over. Because we do have some spread pages here towards the beginning with this storyline right here. So you can see the gutter curve here and a little bit of gutter loss. Now, this is printed at the iMac printer, but one thing I noticed is that the last iMac printer book that I had, I think just last week or maybe the week before that, the paper stock seemed thinner. This feels thicker. This almost feels like a mega print type of paper stock. So let's look at a story that I know has a lot of white pages here, and it's this one. So you can see the word bubble showing up from the opposite page, so you can see the bleed through that is happening. Now, of course, that color is really light, and that's not on purpose. But yeah, like right here, just a little bit of the frame that is coming through. We've seen better and we've seen worse. You can see the word. So what I want to do is actually compare it to my original printing over here, because I did talk about how thick it is, and I can tell immediately that the paper stock is thicker. And the color, let's look at the colors actually. Now we've had, what, 14 years of engineering, so at least this one's laying down a little bit better. I can say that about it. Actually, let's get to this page. Yeah, this page. So, gutter loss. Actually, gutter loss happening on both of them. This actually have to hold down. And gutter loss is a little bit, oh my gosh, wait, let me see. I don't know. I think it's actually a little bit better in the new printing. Colors, looking about this, here, let's actually go to some pages with some different colors. So it's a little bit darker in the original printing. And I will say the book lays over better over here in the new printing. So now let's look at those pages we were looking at earlier. So over here, yeah, there's still some bleed through, but it's a little more prominent over here as opposed to the original printing. So let's look at the next page. Sorry, this page right here. So yeah, just a little bit more than over here. But that is it. That, as they say, is that. If you are interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors. BD Cosmos, the Canadian leader in graphic novels. They have a physical storefront in Montreal, Quebec, and their website, bdcosmos.com, offers 25% off your order of over $99 or more, and free shipping everywhere in Canada for every order of $250 or more.
Their shipping care is exceptional. Your books will stay cozy through the rough Canadian weather and arrive to you in near mint condition.
After checkout, let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way, and you'll be added to the monthly $25 gift card raffle. Entries are valid for new and returning customers.
Don't be afraid to call or email them. Ask them questions. Their staff is always happy to help guide you towards the right purchase. Visit their website, bdcosmos.com, for more. BD Cosmos, with rewards and raffles taking care of customers in Canada. Eh?
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count and build, and of course the comparison to the original printing. In the comments down below, let me know if you have the original printing or if this is the book you voted for and you're going to pick it up. You're going to pick up Wolverine Goes to Hell, and you just like everything Wolverine, including Volume 6, including all the No-Nos era. That's right, man. It's the X-Curse, baby, and I love it. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Smash that like button on the way out. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.